Um, the next panel will be moderated by Max, and he likes to make his own introduction, so I will hand over the microphone to Max.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Max Gurvits, I guess I'll introduce you. People might not know.
Yeah, so I'm Max. I guess most people know me already. I absolutely don't see anything from here, so I hope you're all there. Actually, today we're going to close. I think it's the last part, or maybe there's one more thing, but definitely one of the last things today at How to Web. A very interesting panel about the common mistakes that startup founders make. And before I introduce my great panelists, I just want to share that this is a topic which, for me, is kind of central in everything I do. It sounds very grand, but I'm someone who founded a startup myself. It nominally was a success in the sense that we had a team, we raised money. That's not necessarily part of the success, but we did raise money. We built a product, we got customers. It started making more money than the money that it cost, and I even managed to sell my shares for more money than I spent on building that startup. So it's a success in a way. If you look on formal descriptions on my CV or the stories that I tell, probably it sounds like a success, but to be really frank with you, a lot of mistakes were made, and so many of them actually that a lot of the things that I do now, I guess the central part of my work, as helping startups grow, mentoring, investing in startups, is to actually, I always, hope and pray to see that people don't make the same mistakes. And generally, even the very starting teams usually don't make the mistakes that I do. So I'm somewhat, I guess, successful or experienced in that. So, without much further ado, I'm going to introduce my panel, and we're going to talk about this. First of all, we have Lucian Todea, who is a Romanian entrepreneur. Romanian entrepreneur and angel investor. Good to have him. Lucian has a great company called Soft32. It's an app store for Windows apps, right?
Yeah, it's an online distribution platform for software. Yeah.
Awesome. And you have 10 million monthly users, right?
I think even more now.
Even more?
Yeah, 10 plus.
Okay, that's very good. So, Lucian also invests in companies, so we can look at both sides. Then I have Ashley Stockwell from Wayra in London. Give a big applause, please. Good to have you, Ashley. Ashley is someone who's been brand manager with Virgin for what, 20 years? You said, right?
Yep.
So we can talk a lot about how to build actually a successful brand and the mistakes that can be made there as well.
Exactly.
And plus, Ashley right now is mentoring what you mentioned. You mentored 2 cohorts of startups at Wayra.
Yeah, Wayra in London and more recently Wayra in Prague. Yeah.
Okay. So and then my last panelist is Malin Stefanescu. Is he here? There you are. Okay, come on stage. Applause, please. How are you? And Malin is also an entrepreneur and investor, is that correct? You have invested in startups? Or you have built? Okay, you have invested, built startups. So basically, yeah, mistakes, I don't know, basically maybe I'll just give a word to each of you to introduce as far as I haven't, and maybe mention a couple of things that you would want to say about your experiences with startups and mistakes. Ashley,
Okay, I mean, so yeah, I mean, I've picked up quite a bit of learning from working at Wayra in both London and Prague. But one of the key things for me in terms of mistakes is really momentum and speed. And having been lucky enough to work for part of Virgin, one of the things that Richard Branson does is he does things very, very quickly, quite irritatingly quickly. He believes that if he can launch an airline in 6 weeks, then he can pretty much launch any business in 6 weeks. And I, fortunately or unfortunately, ended up having to launch a cola business from a complete standing start with 6 weeks because Richard announced it on News at 10 in the UK. And one of the things I think that the startups, particularly when they come to accelerators, ironically, is they tend to relax. And one of the key things I think is about keeping momentum up, get your product launched, get it out there. Even if it's not perfect, it's better to get it out there to get your feedback quicker, get customers quicker, ultimately get revenue quicker, and prove your model. So really just set a deadline, and if it's more than 3 months, I would question what the problem is. So that would be my first big observation.
Thank you. That's, to be honest, it's a very nice quote of Richard Branson. He's also well known for saying that if you want to make a small fortune in aviation, you have to start with a big one.
Well,
So
I think that's true, but hey.
Right. Lucian, how's your experience? I mean, you basically, from the ground up, you have built a business. You're investing in startups now. What are kind of the things that you have made as mistakes that you don't want others to repeat?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur for the last 10 years. In the last year, I became also like an angel investor. So yeah, if you take 10 years, you have the chance to make a lot of mistakes. And frankly, I did a lot of mistakes. Everyone is saying that you should learn from your mistake and don't do it again. The idea is with mistakes, and advice is how to not make the same mistakes, is the context. Not for, it's very hard to give the same advice, or depending on the context of the startup, of how the market is. So basically, what I'm looking is learning from those mistakes, never do that again, and also those so-called small successes are very important, because usually, you know, there is an infinite mistakes pool of mistakes that you can make, but success is like a very few. There are small successes, there are big successes. So I think now there is the debate, you should fail fast, fail often, but if you just fail and you just learn and never like have a small success, or you see the light at the end of the tunnel, then what are you gonna do? But I guess we're gonna talk a little bit more about that soon.
We will. Malin, how's your experience? I mean, you very much like Lucian, you have built a pretty successful business. As far as I know, you have 3 businesses that you built, right? You have EEU Software, you built a branding agency, Red Umbrella, and you guys have a development studio called Ludic, right?
Yeah, so, okay, it's difficult to say what are the common mistakes. In my opinion, what I don't like is when I see founders not really believing in their ideas, or eventually letting others believe in their ideas. But I think it's more important to have success than failures.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. In the end of the day, we had this, I don't know who was there at Alex Hunter's presentation, who's also from Virgin, who has experience with Virgin, who said that, you know, failing is all very well, but, you know, you have professions like base jumping where you can't fail, right? So, you know, maybe we can do it like this. You know, there are like 2 theses that I think are very central to what we're doing. So first of all, it's this whole notion of failing. You know, there's always talk about that in Europe in general, and especially in our region, failure is something that, you know, it's a different thing. People have to get used to it. On the other hand, there is this notion that you hear from Silicon Valley. Dave McClure from 500 Startups is well known for saying that, you know, this whole talk about failure has become so standard that people are not anymore afraid to fail. They're actually afraid to succeed. So maybe we can exchange a couple opinions on that. And another one, which you know, I see a lot from the investment and mentoring perspective, is that, you know, we create these frameworks for startups, you know, that, you know, what is success, what is failure. You have to have, you know, a standard pitch and product market fit and all that stuff, which I think also sometimes pushes people in the wrong direction. So if we start with the first one, you know, Ashley, you have built Wayra, which is an accelerator in all over the place, right? It's in a couple of cities. You've been involved in London and Prague.
Yeah. So there are 14 academies globally, with 7 in Latin America and 7 in Europe.
If you compare, for instance, London and Prague, which is, I guess, an interesting comparison between Western and Central Europe, are there different approaches or feelings about failure that you see in the teams?
I'm not sure that there are different views about failure. I think people in Prague at the moment seem to be a little too relaxed, and they need to have a bit of fire in their belly. But I tend to agree with Alex from yesterday in terms of it's not about focusing on failure. It's you want to minimize your risk of failure, and you can do that through a whole number of things about getting other people's advice on things, testing things, doing all that. But it's okay to make the mistake if that happens, as long as you learn from it, remember it, and move on. And that's another sort of classic Virgin trait, which is it's okay to make a mistake, but don't make the same mistake twice. And I've made some fairly big mistakes in my career, even at Virgin, where I ran out of petrol when I was giving Richard Branson a lift to a hotel, which could have been a hugely career-limiting move, but actually I did all right through it. But that was about managing that mistake, and clearly whenever I've taken him in the car since, I've made sure I've got a full tank of petrol. For me, it's minimizing the risk of mistake and learning from the mistakes if they do happen.
So, yeah, first of all, from how I see it at least, especially in Romania and probably in Europe, failure is like a stigma. Even in US, there are differences in, for example, in Europe versus Silicon Valley. They're not that they enjoy failure, but failure is just a failure. One thing that I want to say before going a little bit further is a startup is meant to make mistakes. I mean, and there is a difference between mistakes and how you actually find the right market fit. So there are mistakes, real mistakes, and there are like pivots. You start trying to figure out what you are doing. So a startup is actually in a very unknown space. So he's trying to figure out what he's doing. So there are some, let's say, big mistakes, like finding another right partner, like being I don't know if being ahead of market, it's a mistake, but if you invest your time and the energy, it might be a mistake, and then you lose the momentum, you're not going to go back there, someone else is going to take it. But if you take it overall, you even if you are ahead of the market and you're very innovative, it's still for the greater good. Let's say for the greater good, it might be a good thing. So this might be a mistake for you, but not a mistake for the others. So I don't want to go in these differences between Europe or Silicon Valley, because I don't think this is the topic. So going back about the failure, as I said, it's meant to fail. A lot of startup to fail, and it's okay to fail. This is the idea: you fail, and then when you're down, there is only one way to go. So yeah.
Absolutely, Malin. How are your ideas? You have been building different businesses. I guess that with the time, you as everyone, you learn from mistakes. Do you have any reflections about the lessons you've learned from your first business and how you incorporated that in your next businesses?
Well, yes, I think we have to learn from mistakes. Actually, big organizations tend to have processes in place for these situations. They have lessons learned, and they study the lessons learned from different projects and so on. I think it's good to keep those mistakes, accepted mistakes, somewhere where you can see them, and you can, remind whatever happened there, and try not to repeat them. Otherwise, it's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely. If you look, one of the I guess points where a lot of startups miss out is in terms of team. I personally, if I look at my own experience, I think I have made two very big mistakes with my first business. That was, first of all, partnering with the wrong co-founders. We were just very close friends, and as we were growing the business, it became clear that we're not perfect work partners. The other one is that I took too much money too early from the wrong kind of guys, which is also a learning point, big one. In terms of the team, it's very often it's a given, especially when you're a first-time founder. You have people that and that's who you are kind of destined to do your first startup with. Ashley, any thoughts on on your experiences with this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most common reasons for a team to fail within Wayra is because the founders split, and that's happened a few times. And for me, it's about being absolutely clear about what your roles and responsibilities are as a set of founders, and ultimately as your team. If you're not clear in terms of what your role is versus what the other co-founder's role is, then you're going to run into problems. And I had numerous examples of talking to teams in Wayra, startups, where we were talking about sales and sort of said, "Have you contacted so and so?" And two of the members of the team said, "Oh yeah, I've emailed him," and the other person said, "Oh well, I've emailed him as well." And you just start thinking, "Hang on a minute, guys. You just need to be clear of who's doing what, because otherwise you're wasting your time, and time is really precious." And so being really clear in terms of what your role and responsibility is within the startup, what you should be doing versus what your partner should be doing.
Lucian, in your case?
So in general, the team is the most important part of a company. For a startup, it's even more important, because with the team, especially the first team, and as I said, in general, is the most important. The people that are in that team are the people that you should build your company, the startup on it. So it's very important to have the chemistry, to be on the same page, to have as much expertise together, because at the beginning, you're going to do all the things, the operations, the financials, talking to the customer, developing, looking at what's going on there. So the team is very important. And if the team, is this idea, a team, it's more important than having an A idea. Because a team can go and build other products. You fail, you can, with a very good team, you can go and build something else. With just a good idea and not a good team, what are you going to have if you're going to fail? Nothing. The team is not good, the idea was, a waste, and then you are at the beginning alone. So build a team, the idea, if it's good, is not good, it doesn't matter. As long as the team stays together and you can build on that team other things, it's the most important part.
Absolutely. If we reverse the question, if I just ask you guys, it's clear that the team failure is one of the most common mistakes. Does anyone of you have recipes for, imagine you're doing your first startup, how not to make big mistakes with a team? How would you do it if you're looking back?
I'd say something here. So, in my opinion, yes, of course, team is very important, but there should be always a leader, the founder probably, who has to inspire the team, has to work together with the team, has to create synergies and so on. And if this doesn't work, it should be considered as a personal failure of the leader. Or at least this is how I consider it if it happens to me, okay? So if the team splits, it's also my personal failure. So the founder should look after the team, should pamper the team, should, drink with the team, should be friend with the team and so on. And in the end, if something wrong goes on, then it's also his failure. Of course, it can be that some of the team members are not okay or whatever, but in the end, it's still the leader, that made the mistake. And so we go back to your previous question.
I mean, I think that the other thing is if a member of the team isn't working and doesn't fit, then you have to be pretty brutal as a founder in terms of making that decision and potentially removing that person from the business or from the team really quickly, because those things can drag on. They can suck up a lot of time, a lot of energy and emotion, and ultimately sometimes money as well. So if it's not working, just try and nip it in the bud as quickly as you can, such that you can move on as a team.
So yeah, I think the question was the recipe, and also there are two things I want to say here. So, yeah, the speed of the team is the speed of the, let's say, not the best one in the team. So that's why you should eliminate as fast as possible the ones that can, and actually can, this kind of mistakes is it can kill your startup at the beginning at least. Then about the recipes, I can say I did this mistake on not being very at the beginning, like 10 years ago. I was not focused on the team. I was focused on actually making money and building the startup, and I was not focused on the team. Now I have a different approach. Now I look at the team, and then I can think about I don't know, the vision, the strategy. The idea, I think the recipe is very simple. If you are the founder, or there are more founders, and you can inspire others to join the vision, and those are, as I said before, on the same page, then you are building a team. And this is the only thing. Everyone in the team should be, and frankly, I don't agree that it's a failure of the leader. If everyone is joining the vision and we are sharing the same path, then it's a failure. It's a failure or success of the team. It's yeah. So it's, of course, there is someone that is looking ahead, but still, it's the success and the failure. It's of the team. At least this is how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this maybe this builds an interesting bridge to the other topic. The expectations created. It's a funny thing you mentioned, and I generally always agree with what Malin said about a team needing to have a CEO. I remember when we were looking at teams applying to 11. That was one of the things. Okay, who is the guy where the buck stops? This is this American expression: the buck stops here. Everyone can talk and decide, but in the end, there's one guy calling the shots. Interesting enough, I don't know if you heard the other speaker who was on today, Matt from Mixcloud. So their company doesn't have a CEO. They have 3 guys, and I was surprised, to hear this. You don't hear this often. They have 3 guys who take all the decisions together, and sometimes they vote 2 to 1. Sometimes it's consensus, but it's basically if you can't point to a CEO. And maybe this is something that's been on my mind a lot lately about how with all the pitching events going on, all the competitions, all the the very standardized early stage startup process that we have with accelerators, incubators, et cetera, are we doing a good job in helping people avoid mistakes, or are we just putting them in silos and standardizing the whole experience? Ashley, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, as an accelerator, it's our job to try and help mentor and advise the teams to try and avoid the pitfalls we've been talking about. But the next problem there is that the founders need to be open to feedback and the fact that they don't necessarily know the answer to every question. So we do all we can to help and support and guide the teams, but it's really up to you as founders to make those decisions. So we do what we can, but it's not always easy.
Yeah, and in the end of the day, I mean, that was the lesson that I learned from Matt, was that if investors don't buy your story, you just continue to build your startup without a CEO. That may be a mistake or may not be a mistake, right? Apart from the team, what kind of big mistakes? So we talked about listening to customers, the team. What kind of common mistakes do you guys want to share any ideas on? What are the other ones?
For me, another common one within the startups in Wayra is planning and focus. It's very easy as a startup and within an accelerator, but startups generally, to get distracted very, very quickly on different things because the business is moving very quickly. You're a small, tight team. You get advice from absolutely everybody, and it's very easy to listen to the last piece of advice and then change direction. Key for me is have a plan, focus, and try and aim for that. You may drift off slightly, but at least you've got a plan. And there are lots of startups that I've seen who don't really have a plan for the next 3 to 6 months, so they don't quite know which direction they're heading.
Yeah. So just a little bit coming back to the previous question, I think it's amazing what is going on right now by minimizing the risks. There are so many so-called frameworks, philosophy, lean startups, and ways to actually test your idea before actually writing any line of code, smoke test, talking to the customer, the so-called customer development approach. So I think even if you look 10 years back, I think everyone, all the ecosystem and what's going on in the technology and in the online environment, it's amazing. In minimizing the risk. This doesn't mean that it's going to, everyone is going to succeed, but I think what's happening is it's good. Now coming back to common mistakes, there are a lot of mistakes, but yeah, one thing is, as an entrepreneur, we like to build things. That's why sometimes you get distracted, because you find a new possible toy. And then you also, on the other side, you are, as an entrepreneur and as a startup, sometimes you get too attached with that toy. Also, when you build your own product, sometimes you have to say a lot of no's. You know, there is this saying, for every yes, there are like 1,000 no's. It's very hard to say no. I mean, it's so easy to say yes, but to actually, and this is come back and completing what you said, is focusing. So there are a lot of distractions, because this is the nature of the entrepreneur, to build stuff. It's very easy to, I want to do that. Also, when you focus only on one thing, then you get attached to it, and sometimes it's very hard to actually say, I'm going to stop it and do something else. So. And I think there are a lot of other common mistakes, but this one I see in the last in the last days I see a lot.
Absolutely, Malin, you have.
In my opinion, founders have to be stubborn and perseverant, whatever they want to do. Perseverant is a key word, and with this they have to be consistent as well. Talking about realizing prototypes or whatever, they have to, they say if you're happy with your prototype, then it means you waited too much, no? So yes, I think they have to, and about standardizing the startups, it's the same story. If they are stubborn and perseverant, they will get maybe some clues about standards, but they will go their way, no? So.
Absolutely. So persevering, which is also the word hustling is a good word for that. We still have a couple of minutes left. A lot of startups in the room. Does anyone ask a question about or share a failure experience, or how you dealt with it, or any kind of feedback that we can get from our panel? Anyone? There you go. There's someone. Let me.
My name is Dumitru, founder of Friendly, again. I have a question, actually. This is the problem that we have now, and I want to address to you. We have two choices: to monetize from day one, or to make it more popular by making it free. I think a lot of companies did fail and make this a big mistake by making it free from day one, and then to have a database of users and then to monetize. Or it's opposite, or it different, or it differs from the startup to startup. So what is your opinion on this one? Is it a fail?
Well, I can give you at least two examples for the both answer. So there are a startup that say that and succeeded by charging on the first day, and it's very good because you train your customers that it's not a free product, and you position yourself as a paying product. On the other side, there are so many examples. Even consider Google. Everything is free. Of course, the user becomes the product. They manage to grow very fast. It's very hard to compete on a monetization level with something that is free. So I don't know exactly the context of your startup, but I would guess both answer could be good for you. You have to figure out what you want and what is the profile of your customer. If it's free, you will be able to charge later. How you're gonna position, I don't know, the competition. So I would say, I don't know. You should figure out yourself. As I said, there are both answers might be true for you. I don't know the context. So
I agree with Lucian, and I would add that first of all, you should ask your own vision. So where do you want to get with the product or the service you sell? And then establish the strategy.
It's a B2C or B2B first? B2C. If it's my feeling, if it's B2C, free might be the way, but I don't know the context. So.
Anyone else? Any questions? I see a couple of people there. Victor, you've been asking a lot of questions, so I'm going to give first to someone else.
Hi, I'm Marius from Soft32. I understand that it's very important to build a good team for the startup. What about the volunteers? In an online product, you usually have volunteers. If you have a forum, moderators, or something like that, how can you make that team be very united and keep going well? A team of volunteers.
So the question, what was the question?
How do you motivate volunteers to right? How do you motivate volunteers to work, to hustle?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to, recruit people who've got passion and understand and want to love and work for your business. I mean, that ultimately, if an employee or a volunteer or an intern doesn't really get or understand or believe what you're doing, then I wouldn't take them on. So if they've got the passion for doing what you want to do, then that's half the battle. And then, there is nothing better than working hard, playing hard, and thanking people for doing a good job, ultimately. So it's the stuff that makes us all feel good. It's not necessarily about what we get paid at the end of the day, or what we might end up earning. It's about having a good time, feeling we're part of a team, enjoying it, and sharing successes and failures together.
I guess that founders are volunteers by definition, right? Until it starts working.
There should be a difference between volunteers and mercenaries. So if they're volunteers, they're easy to motivate. If they are mercenaries, then it's difficult.
I would say at the beginning you don't motivate them. You sell them a vision, and that's it. And then they auto motivate them, and they join.
That's a good motivation vision. Yeah.
I think this is this is how I would do it.
Victor, you had a question? I think we still have a little time just for one question.
Hello, I'm Victor from Favorite, and my question is regarding mistakes and learning. So when do you know you have to pivot, that you have to change something, that what you're doing is not working, and it's some sort of a mistake and you have to pivot?
Deep inside, I think when you make mistakes, it's just being like reality check and be sincere with yourself. Sometimes it's very hard for us entrepreneurs with a very big ego to recognize our mistakes, but I think deep inside you all the time know, especially if you look back. Of course, it's very hard to know what is going to be a mistake, because if you would know that, you wouldn't do it, but if you look back, you'll know what mistakes. So looking back, it's pretty easy to pinpoint exactly where I should have done that, where I shouldn't have done that, and stuff like that. So looking back, and this is how you learn. Learning by mistakes, I think, is by looking back in the past and seeing those points. So yeah, this is how you see it. Probably in the present, it's hard right now to know exactly what is the mistake.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of, and it's also a very nice way to actually wrap up the discussion. What is a mistake? If you look at a company like Rovio, this is a famous story. They made over 50 games before they made Angry Birds, right? So, they actually pivoted over 50 times before they found the right thing. And I guess that one of the things that is probably most important is that, having a runway, both financially and mentally, to actually make a lot of mistakes. That's probably the way to go about it in many ways. Maybe closing remarks, because we're out of time.
Yeah, as I said, there are mistakes and there are like adaptation, evolution, and stuff like that. It might look like, as you said, Rovio by, I don't know, launching 50 games. I don't think those 50 games were a mistake, were mistakes by itself. They were just building and preparing for the success. You know, the success, it comes to those that are prepared. It's not only luck or just, you know, I've heard this funny thing is we have to fail 10 times to reach success. You can fail probably 100 times if you're not learning or you're not doing the right thing. So it's not about failing fast or, I don't know, often. Because this is also a trick. Sometimes get in the mindset, okay, I failed 3 times, I have 4 more times to fail, and I'm gonna go there. No, it's actually building and, I don't know, going up somehow. This would be my closing
Yeah,
remark.
I mean, again, going back to my days at Virgin, we probably closed as many businesses as we launched. I mean, I've worked on Virgin Cola, Virgin Vodka, Virgin Cars, Virgin Bikes, Virgin Brides, Virgin Cosmetics, all of which no longer exist. So although Richard Branson is a very successful entrepreneur, he's had his fair share of failures. But the one thing that he always does is every opportunity is a marketing opportunity. And I again, for the startups that I see through the Wayra program, they sometimes miss that. So whoever you are meeting, whatever networking event, there will be someone there who may know someone who can help you, who can support you, who may be able to sell to you. So get those business cards out. You know, print little leaflets. Do something that's memorable. Every opportunity is a marketing opportunity for your startup.
Hustle.
Okay, I have a favorite saying. It says, donkeys have sex because they are insistent, not because they are beautiful.
Okay. On that very positive remark, I'd like to thank my panel very much. Ashley, Lucian, and Malin, thank you so much. And thank you guys.